5 years ago, I made a promise to myself. I refuse to see the world in a way that does not serve me. On the surface, this can sound like an unrealistic way to live, refusing to look at the bad things, but it is much deeper than that. And it's much less about changing what you look at and much more about changing how you look at things. So in this episode, I want to break down why this statement is so darn powerful and how it is genuinely life-changing. And in doing that, I'm going to share the 5 reasons why this one statement is the ultimate tool for living a life of peace, of fulfillment, and genuine joy. So if you are ready to stop being thrown about by life and you are ready to start taking charge of your one life, then let's get into it. For the longest time, I blamed how I was feeling on other people, on the world, on situations that were out of my control. If anything, I lived the opposite of the statement that I just shared. I was determined to see the world in a way that didn't serve me. Put simpler, I was determined to see the injustices, to focus my attention on things that weren't fair. And how did I feel as a result? Passionate, sure, but definitely not happy or anywhere near peaceful. And it was only when I really hit rock bottom and then listened to a podcast, Vex King podcast, where he said that nothing is intrinsically good or bad. It's only good or bad when we label it in that way. And I realized that I had been labeling so much up to this point as bad. And what this podcast made me realize is that that wasn't necessarily how it was, and that actually I had a choice. And I started being really, really specific with that choice. And the more specific I became, the more I realized that it's not just in some situations we have the choice as to see them as serving us or not serving us, as good or bad. We have that choice in absolutely everything. And this is what I'm going to explain to you. So the first reason why this is true is because you are not the audience to your life. You are the narrator of your life. A lot of people think that they are kind of strapped in for the ride of life and they are on the roller coaster. They go up when there's an up and they go down when there's a down. When there's an economic crash, when it's raining outside, when someone doesn't come to their birthday party, that's when they crash. When you win a lottery ticket or it's a sunny day, you feel good. But that's not how it is. You are not an audience member. You're not strapped in on a roller coaster. You are the one directing the roller coaster. You just don't realize it. You get to write the script. So if a scene in your life doesn't serve the storyline that you want to live, you're the one with the pen. You get to change it. Not because you're rewriting what happens, but you're rewriting how you interpret what happens. A really classic example is, this has happened on 2 occasions, so think what you will of that. But a couple of times I've walked the shops with a £20 note in my pocket. And when I got to the shop, I found that it was no longer there. Now, I'd kept it in the same pocket that my phone was in, and so I probably pulled out my phone to check it on the distance between my house and the shop. And probably in doing so, the note fell out. And the first time this happened was at a time where I'd been doing a lot of this work. I had really been living with this statement of, I refuse to see the world in a way that does not serve me. And so instead of choosing to see the loss of this £20 note as something that was of loss to me, that I was lesser off because of it, I decided to choose the perspective where a homeless person, somebody who was really short on cash, had found it, and as a result would have been able to feed themselves for a week or really enjoy a special dinner that evening. The reality is, we don't know where that £20 went. It could have gone to somebody who then bought cigarettes with it. We don't know. But in not knowing, unless I want to stay neutral and not have an opinion at all, I can kind of come up with any idea that I want as to what happened to it. I had a family friend who actually messaged me yesterday, and she was like, I really need some help choosing to be happy because I've been refused flight to the Maldives. She hadn't been abroad in 8 years, and she'd finally booked this trip to the Maldives that she was really, really excited about. It was a group trip. She was going with other people. and they wouldn't let her on because she was allergic to oranges. And they said that she hadn't given enough warning of this. And I said to her, look, if you want to be angry and disappointed and annoyed, you are well within your right to be, and that is entirely your choice. But if you are genuinely asking because you want to feel better about this, then I would be in the headspace of, perhaps I'm actually really lucky that I wasn't allowed on that flight, because even if they told everyone that there was someone on board that was allergic to oranges, just like they do with peanuts, there might still have been someone next to her or in an aisle close to her that had something orangey and that weren't as respectful and conscious, or maybe wasn't even listening when they'd given that announcement. And that could have had a serious impact to her health. She might not have even made it to the Maldives. And I know that's a dark thought, but that is the kind of thought that I would have. There must have been a reason why I wasn't allowed on that flight. Now, I'm not giving that reason to lie to myself. I'm giving myself that reason because it makes me feel at peace. Either way, the reality is I'm not on the flight. Either way, I probably will express my dissatisfaction at how the airline crew went about it and how there must have been a mishap in them getting my requests. I also would like to think that they might give me some kind of incentive, or whatever the word is, something as like an apology. A gesture of goodwill as a result of what happened, because at the end of the day, I'm missing out on accommodation, the other side, yada, yada, yada. And so, again, it's not that we're lying to ourselves. We just have the ability to write the script however we want to. She also reached out to me. We got to have a nice conversation. She got to have a nice conversation with my mum as well. And so it's a hard pill to swallow when you're so used to blaming your circumstances. And I know how hard it is to swallow because I was there, and I've also been on the other side as seeing how much power I have over how I feel and trying to share that with other people and them really refusing to swallow that pill. And so I hope that you're here because you really want to change how you feel, or maybe you've been taking this perspective for a while, but you've had some challenges come your way and you really need a reminder of it. So with that, we're going to go on to reason number 2, why this is so true and so powerful and so life-changing. And that is because realistic is just another word used to say negative. People love to say, I'm just being realistic, in order to justify why they're pointing out the negatives or focusing on lack. But being realistic is usually just a trap that keeps you focusing on what's wrong, not necessarily what is true. And similar to what I was just describing, since nobody knows what the future does hold, or usually even all sides of a story, you might as well pick the version of reality that makes you feel powerful. And sometimes this is harder than others, because the other day it came out that Tony Robbins had been to something like Trump's house for a meal, or the launch of his wife's documentary or something like that. And there were a lot of comments about how people didn't expect that from Tony Robbins. And I think similar happened with Elon Musk. So you've kind of got these two people who, one is one of the most intelligent people in the world, and one is kind of the most emotionally intelligent people in the world. Now, I'm not sat here saying I'm not a Trump supporter, or I am a Trump supporter. I'm based in the UK, so I'm really not here to talk about politics. What I'm here to talk about is how I was surprised, based on the allegations that Trump has been accused of, that Tony Robbins would want to associate himself with something like that. And I actually went on to ChatGPT and I was like, why might this be? Why would Tony Robbins be connecting himself with somebody like this? And none of the answers really stuck, but I didn't want to assume the worst. And actually, I watched Tony Robbins' live seminar the other day, and he actually said in there, and I assume he was subtly referencing exactly my question, and he said that just like in the past where he had, I think he coached Ronald Reagan, I'm not sure, he'd coached a past president, he said, you know, it's not about assuming the worst in people and having beliefs about people. He wants to be able to help whoever's in a position of power over the country, whether they have good associated with them or bad. He is somebody who has done a huge amount of philanthropic stuff. He's on a mission to give billions of meals out, and he has done so far. He's done a lot of work on, I think it's the Underground Railroad stuff, where children are involved. He's done a huge amount of good stuff. And so actually, by putting himself closer to someone in power, he's not necessarily agreeing with everything that person does, but he's saying, I want to be close enough so that I can help as much as possible to make this world a better place. And since hearing that, it makes a lot of sense, and it makes me feel better about this person's morals. And I nearly didn't, because I was being led into this kind of 2D image that was being painted in the media that he was bad because he was associating himself with this person. So it's remembering there's not always just one side to a story. There are so many sides to a story. And if you're going to just look at a story in a 2D way, then pick the 2D version that makes you feel good, that makes you feel at peace, that makes you feel inspired. For instance, if you want to go and help people in Gaza, rather than spending your time watching documentaries and stories about all the people that have died out there, watch stories and documentaries about people who have succeeded in helping, people who have succeeded in saving lives. That is what is going to motivate you to make a change. Watching stuff about what's going on over there and all the wrong stuff that's happening, that's going to make you angry. And that can be a catalyst and a fuel for starting to make change. But after a while, it's going to make you feel like there's no point in even continuing. Whereas painting an image in your brain that there is a point, that success can happen, that is where magic really happens. And you feel good too. Number 3, your mood is fueled. If you get a supercar, so think of your favorite supercar, do you think you would then put really cheap fuel in that car? Or not even fuel, but pour vegetable oil into the fuel canister? No. You would put premium oil into that car because you've spent so much money on this vehicle that is exceptional. However, it's only as exceptional as its fuel. If you put diesel in a petrol car, it's not going to move at all, no matter how many millions you paid for it. And that is the same with you. If you fuel yourself with low quality fuel of anger, hatred, frustration, you're not going to be able to build a great life. You're going to build a great life that's on the foundations of stubbornness, of dissatisfaction, of my life isn't fair. And you might feel like that's true, but your life cannot become great from there. Instead, you build a great life of purpose, of passion, of love from high quality fuel, like hope, like excitement, like joy, by refusing to see the world in a way that does not serve you. Or let's flip that to the positive equivalent, by being determined to see the world in a way that does serve you. You fuel yourself with high quality energy. And that's the kind of energy that leads you to get stuff done, to not procrastinate, to go out and do things that make you feel proud, to do things you don't want to do, but you know you need to do. That is what a positive life, a feel-good life, a purposeful life, a well-lived life is built on. It's not built on self-doubt. It's not built on focusing on how rubbish your parents were. It's on looking at the one positive influence you did have in your childhood and trying to be more like them by recognizing what you didn't like in certain people and viewing that as a gift, something you can use to make you better and make sure that you don't end up the same way. Number 4, refusing to see the world in a way that does not serve you is not lying. It's refocusing. If you go to a beautifully kept garden and you're walking and suddenly you see a crisp packet on the floor in the corner and you spend your time focusing on that crisp packet and you start saying, gosh, the gardeners around here aren't great. Gosh, they're not very clean around here. Oh, what a messy environment. Oh, I don't think we should come here again. Your whole perception of this beautiful garden has been ruined from one crisp packet. So if we look at what's true, was there a crisp packet? Yes. Would the garden have been even nicer if the crisp packet hadn't been there? Yes. But did the crisp packet intrinsically ruin the garden? No. Is the garden a bad garden because there's a crisp packet there? No. Is the garden not beautiful because there's a crisp packet there? No. But by focusing on it, you are drawing all of your attention to this one not so positive thing in this garden of positives. So you might have some truth there, but you are hiding the full picture. By being determined to view the world in a way that does serve you, you would not focus on the crisp packet. If anything, you might pick it up and think, oh, thank goodness I saw that before it blew into the trees. I can pop that in the bin now. Or, oh, good reminder not to litter, because it takes your focus away from the beauty of this place. And instead, you might decide to look up at the trees, really enjoy the natural scenery that is around you. Because those good things are just as real as that singular crisp packet on the floor that you have labelled as negative. You're not lying by focusing on the good stuff. You're just changing where you put your focus. And finally, number 5, you regain your veto power. When someone is mean or a situation goes wrong, you have the right to say, I see that, but I refuse to let it mean that I'm having a bad day. I don't know if you've seen the film About Time. It's a really, really, really beautiful film. Really one of my favourites, actually, if not the favourite. And spoiler alert, I mean, I feel like it's pretty obvious, but the two main characters, they end up getting married. And on their wedding day, it pours down with rain. They're literally having a garden party and it just hammers with rain. But the scene is so, so beautiful. Because instead of tuts and sighs and, oh, this day is ruined, because you would think that. If you believed that it was going to be sunny on your wedding day and you set everything up to be outside and then it hammered down with rain, and I think there was like lightning and a whole storm, you would very easily and naturally and within your right be disappointed and upset. But they were laughing. They started dancing in the rain. They were giggling and running about, and it was exciting and exhilarating and memorable. And then they all got cozy and wrapped up in blankets inside. And perhaps it was more memorable than if there had been no rain at all. So just because something is societally deemed as bad doesn't mean that it is. You have a brain. You get to choose. You can choose to be angry. You can choose to see it as negative if you want to. Now, there are absolutely things that you can look at and say, that is not a positive thing. But it doesn't have to get you angry. You can decide to distance yourself from it. You can decide to do something to change it. So to conclude, you are the boss of your own brain, and nothing gets to mean something unless you give it permission. So decide now, pop it in the comments. What are the 3 words that describe how you want to feel each day? How do you want to feel? I mean, me when I'm at my best is enthusiastic, of course, bold, not the hair kind or lack of, but bold as in courageous and willing to do things that are uncomfortable, but that I believe in, and calm, a good one to balance out both of those 3. And so that's how I am when I'm at my best, and it's how I want to be more often. Because in calm, that also encompasses patience. In enthusiasm, that encompasses excitement and motivation. And in being bold, that encompasses courage and trying new things. And so I want to be thinking thoughts that encourage those feelings. Because when I feel those things, I am better to other people. I'm more patient with my partner. I show up for other people like this. I put out content for free that helps people. I'm passionate about my purpose. I'm healthier. I get outside more. Whereas if I was to watch conspiracy theories and murder documentaries and watch the news every day, honestly, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing here. If I was, I'd probably be talking about all of those politics and conspiracy theories all the time. I would wake up feeling paranoid. I would be really critical on people in power. But instead, I could do that, and I'd probably be fair in doing that. But I want to help. I want to make a change. I don't want to sit around and complain all the time. I want to feel good, have a good life, and help people along the way. And this, what I've just described in this episode, is how you do that. You do not have to see the world in a way that does not serve you, no matter what the news says. You get to choose. And that is the most exciting, freedom-giving truth in this whole universe. So that's it for this episode. I am so grateful that you're here. Please click the like button, subscribe, follow, leave a review if you're listening on podcasts. And honestly, all that is left to say is that I truly, truly, I appreciate you.